Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing and Fabric has what you need for your creative adventure. If it's sewing, embroidery, or vinyl projects you need for a home business, Etsy, Pinterest, and your family, we have it. Mid-South Sewing sells Brothers Sewing and Embroidery machines and the latest scan and cut crafting machine. Mid-South Sewing and Fabric in the Gallery Shopping Center.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by The Flower Pot. For over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. KnoxvilleFlowerPot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Coming up on this edition of Tennessee Life, we get a rare look inside the Cracker Barrel Antique Warehouse. That iconic country store look you see in every restaurant starts right here. Larry Singleton's family started that collection, and he continues the treasure hunt today.
I spent a lot of time in the past, I do, thinking about, what my parents started, what they did, and being surrounded with it every day, things that are part of our history, Cracker Barrel's history, part of, my parents' history. It is kind of a legacy that I didn't really think I'd get a chance to be a part of, but it's been fun, it really has.
The Secret City Festival celebrates Oak Ridge's past, present, and future. We learn more about the roots of this annual tradition in the city that few knew existed until after World War II.
I see the festival continuing to grow and continuing to show what Oak Ridge is. I don't know that we ever want to get so big like some of the other festivals around. We're going to stay and continue to show what Oak Ridge is all about.
The pros make sheep shearing look easy, but by many, it's considered a skill and an art. We get a look at this pioneer practice at the Museum of Appalachia.
Well, it's just something you don't see every day. There's a charisma to it. I guarantee you, every one of these kids, they'll want to touch that wool and even take some home. And so it's a real attraction for them.
Those stories next on Tennessee Life.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Tennessee Life. I'm Vicki Lawson. We start our program with a rare look inside a most unusual warehouse. More than 90,000 antiques are inside this vast Middle Tennessee building. These collectibles are the beginnings of every Cracker Barrel restaurant. Larry Singleton's parents gave those first Cracker Barrels that country store look, a legacy he continues today.
In our warehouse, we probably got about 92,000 pieces in here. The fun part is every once in a while we get things back from our stores that, may have had a little remodel, and think, gosh, I remember buying that years and years ago. Well, I'm Larry Singleton. I'm the decor manager for Cracker Barrel Old Country Store. I've been doing this for approximately 37, 38 years. We started right here in Lebanon, Tennessee. I know Danny, the guy that started Cracker Barrel, he had traveled around with his family when he was young, delivering Shell gasoline. So they had stopped at the little country stores around this area and the counties around. And he just always liked the feel, the atmosphere, the look of the old country stores. So he thought, well, this would be something really fun to try to recreate and start a restaurant. And, we sold antiques in the beginning and, started over into retail. Mom and Dad, it was she's Kathleen and Don Singleton, and she started an antique shop here locally in 1966. So they had a little shop about 3 miles outside of town. And then when Danny come up with the idea, to do an old country store and stock it with authentic pieces, he called Mom and got her and Dad to come in and decorate the first one. And that's kind of what got me around things, going to flea markets and auctions with my parents in the beginning. In the old country stores, they got all their crackers shipped in barrels, wooden barrels, so they put them on display out there. That's what they sold them out of, was the barrels, and then they kind of became the table and gathering point around the old country stores. So, you know, they put checkerboards on top of them, and that's where all the information was shared, and, you know, kind of the community gathered around, was at the old Cracker Barrels. The Cracker Barrels in the old stores, so that was the name he came up with. We had rocking chairs on our porch since 1969, and they're local. They were made in Springfield, Tennessee by Hinkle Rockers, and they've made them ever since. We've been putting them on our front porches, and we wanted to have a place for people to sit down, relax, slow down just a little bit, and, you know, they could come in, have a great meal, and, you know, sit down with family and friends and take it easy. And we've done it ever since. We've always put them out on the front porch. The original stores, first few stores, they put Nickelodeons and player pianos, and right when you came in the front, so you saw those. We didn't do it for very long, just a few years, but, you know, it was a really unusual piece to find, and they would make sure they ran, because you could put a quarter in them and, you know, play the player piano when you walked in. So I do remember those when I was real young. A lot of work to keep them running and operating though, but they were fun to have. I'm always interested in signs, but I love walking through old tools. I've watched kind of a resurgence of guys liking to use hand tools, you know, liking to make things using those. So I love walking through and seeing what all we've found over the years and thinking, God, guys could be using those today. I guess the hunt for these pieces today, you know, some of the dealers I've been buying from over the years, I'm still buying from, you know, 30 years later. I've got guys around here, Lebanon, Middle Tennessee area, that, you know, they get out and hit auctions and knock on doors, and that's always the fun part. They'll call me and say, well, I found 25 of these. Are you interested in them? You know, so it helps us cover a lot more ground than just me out doing it every day. I think the biggest part is the hunt for us. You know, it's that little bit of treasure hunter in us that, you know, loves to get out and dig and find and anticipate that discovery, finding something fun and unique. Yeah, this is one of those pieces that took me a couple of years to finally track down what it was, and asked every dealer that came in the building, you know, have you ever seen one of these? And finally, the guys found it in a catalog that we had for hardware, and it was a slapstick. And they would put a blank shell in here and hit it, and it would make the sound of a gun going off. So theater, movies, maybe slapstick comedy, you know, they use these to make that sound of guns going off. Before it ever gets to the store, we completely design all of our new stores here. We have a mock design area up here. It's kind of set up as the store. We design the whole dining room, the front porch, all the retail area right in there. We lay it out. We all get together and kind of critique and talk about it. Once we're satisfied with it, then we photograph it, inventory it, and it gets packaged up and set up ready to go out to a new store. So we design them all in-house before they ever hit the location. Most of the stores right now are averaging about 800, 900 pieces per store. I guess the design's a little more, I've always looked at it a little more art than science. I mean, you know, we know how many signs pretty close we're going to put in a store, but every one of our designs is a little bit different. I've got a grandson that, you know, when he was real young, he said, "Pa, why does everything you have, why is it old?" Been a lot of time in the past. You know, I do, thinking about, you know, what my parents started, what they did, you know, what they got to be a part of, you know, and being surrounded with it every day, you know, things that are part of our history, Cracker Barrel's history, you know, part of my parents' history. It, you know, it is You know, it is kind of overwhelming to see that and be a part of it, and, you know, be a part of getting to carry that on. It is kind of a legacy that I didn't really think I'd get a chance to be a part of, but it's been fun. It really has.
Later on Tennessee Life, welcome the warmth of spring by helping to trim winter's wool from this flock. We head to the Museum of Appalachia for an old-fashioned sheep shearing. But next, the history behind the Secret City Festival in Oak Ridge.
Oak Ridge, Tennessee is nicknamed the Secret City. Before 1942, it wasn't even on a map. But the important work accomplished there brought an end to World War II. Today, Oak Ridge celebrates achievements past and present at the Secret City Festival. I spoke with organizers about what makes this city so special. How did Oak Ridge come to be?
Oak Ridge is a city in East Tennessee of 30,000 people today. But in 1942, it was a small rural community of 4 or 5 little churches and schools and farming community. And then in November of 1942, the land was taken by the federal government, 60,000 acres. And all of the people, 3,000 people living there, had to move off in just a matter of weeks in order to make room for what was named the Clinton Engineer Works, which was a part of the Manhattan Project. And the role that Oak Ridge was to play, although few knew it, was to develop the uranium, the process for separating the uranium-235 needed for Little Boy, the world's first atomic bomb ever used in warfare. Now, it was a secret city because it maintained that secrecy from 1942 to 1949, and even past then. There's still things, even today, that are secret about what's going on in Oak Ridge. At one time, in August of 1945, there were 22,482 people working at Y-12. In that same month, there were 75,000 people living in the city of Oak Ridge, 5th largest city in the state, wasn't on any map. And there it was in August. All of those people keeping the secret city, about what was going on. Of course, many of them keeping the secret because they didn't know what was going on.
When did the festival transition from the Mayfest to the Secret City Festival?
Well, back in the 1980s, it was the Azalea Festival, which was a very small festival, and it was a one-day festival. They eventually turned it into Mayfest, which was much more widely known, and it was a bigger festival, and it was in May for up until 2001. And at that point, we morphed over into the Secret City Festival. So it has a long history.
Joy, how did the Secret City Festival get its start?
We wanted to look at our history more than anything. And Mayfest doesn't really talk about our history, and Secret City Festival, because we're the Secret City in Tennessee.
Are there traditions at the festival from years past that continue today?
We have lots of children's activities. And one of the things that we've tried to do real hard is to make sure that all of the children's activities are free. The parents don't have to go and buy a bunch of tickets and give tickets out. Everything they want to go to, if they want to run from the one of the slides, they can. That is a tradition that I think that we'll keep. Having local groups on the pavilion, having the history as Ray has talked about, those are really steady ones that we need to keep.
Ray and Joy, how is the festival changing itself to attract a new generation?
I would say that one of the things we're doing with Joy, being so well connected to these entertainment groups around the country, we're bringing some really special bands in and some good entertainment. We've done that in years past, and this year will be no exception.
When we first started out, with the Platters was our first big concert. And that was for the 1950s people. That was their era of music. And we've moved up in eras is how we kind of look at it. So as we go on, we look for more relevant music. We have the Oak Ridge Community Band, and they play outside all the time, and they come and they really bring a crowd. It's really fun to hear them. On our pavilion stage, we have 2 stages. We have a permanent stage that sits in A.K. Bissell Park, and we call it the Pavilion. And then we erect the main stage where we have our concert. But on the pavilion stage, we bring in smaller local groups so that they have an opportunity to perform in front of the community, whereas maybe they wouldn't have before. And we provide the sound and everything, so all they have to do is bring their instruments and their talent, and they're up there.
Joy, why Oak Ridge has such a rich history with contributions to help end World War II, and the whole secret city aspect, it wasn't on the map, no visitors, the confidential work. While you want to honor the past, how does the festival also celebrate the here and now?
One of the things we do is we celebrate the technology. We have tremendous technology coming out of the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Y12, and some of the companies that have been spurred off from those organizations. And we try to feature them in the festival. We also pay a lot of tribute to the arts in Oak Ridge. We've had the Oak Ridge Community Band, the Art Center of Oak Ridge does a juried art show. So there are all kinds of things, like I said, with the community organizations come and let everybody know what they're doing. So that's one of the ways we look at Oak Ridge.
So people who come to the Secret City Festival will get insights into what's going on in Oak Ridge like they cannot get any other time. So there's a tremendous opportunity there in the second weekend of June for everyone to come and see what's going on in Oak Ridge.
Joy, why do you think hosting festivals in a community and keeping them going year after year is important?
It's a quality of life issue. It really is. You need to be able to show off your community, not only to outsiders, but to the people that live there. Because sometimes people are busy with their families and their work, and they don't realize what's going on, all the things that are available, all the people that are involved. It also provides a way to go and meet friends, families. We have family reunions, we have school reunions that come and use the festival as a point of interest to meet. And it just gives a lot of good feeling for this is our community and we love it and we're proud of it and we want to show it off.
You can enjoy visiting the Secret City Festival in the second week of June. Thank you, Ray and Joy, for sharing some of the fascinating history of Oak Ridge and celebrating it with the festival.
Thank you for
You're
having
quite
us.
welcome.
More and more people are raising sheep in Tennessee. In fact, our state ranks near the top for new sheep farms. When you have your own flock, you have to shear that thick wool. We learn more about the art of shearing at the Museum of Appalachia.
They do have personalities. Some are a little bit flightier than others. And you have your real gentle, docile ones. It does take a lot of skill. And when you see him, he'll make it look easy. But it's not as easy as you would think. And there are schools that they go to and learn the techniques to shear. It's an art, it really is. Well, I'm Joe Hall. I'm a sheep producer here in Anderson County. And before that, I was an extension agent here for almost 42 years in Anderson County. We're here at the Museum of Appalachia. I think the third graders from all over East Tennessee come, and they have the sheep here, and they get to watch them being sheared, and also they have a sheep herding dog demonstration. And also they have some wool spinners that are, here making the wool products. There's a charisma to it. I guarantee you, every one of these kids, they'll want to touch that wool and even take some home probably. I don't know how they do that. But it's not something you see every day. And so it's a real attraction for them.
So we do all kinds of programming throughout the year, and this is one of the highlights for us. We show them the sheep, they get to pet the sheep, and then they get to see it being sheared and what happens to that. So they get to see all the processes, from the wool being cleaned and it being carded and it being spun. Then they get to see it become a piece of clothing. So they love that. It's fun, it's educational, and the parents and grandparents can accompany the kids. The teachers can talk about it, bring an educational component to it.
I think traditionally, in a lot of things, farmers would get together and they'd help each other, and they would bring over, their help, and they'd do their sheep. And we still do that here. The shearers will come and they'll be here for a week, and they'll go from farm to farm, and the farmers will help each other, get them up, catch them for them, and bag the wool and that kind of thing. They sheared sheep with hand clippers at one time, and then I think they evolved into a clipper that turns. They had somebody that was turning it that moved the clippers, and now they've gone to the sophisticated electric clippers, which they're more powerful, they can do it quicker and easier. Most people don't realize that a sheep's born with a tail, and we remove that tail to keep it cleaner, especially the females. And also, they're born black and they turn white. Now, you will have a black sheep every now and then, depending on your genetics. In fact, I have one this year. They fit in with grazing with cattle real well, and in the old days, I'm sure they made clothing out of it, and that's how they got their winter clothes. I remember growing up, there were some big flocks around where we live. Then the sheep industry sort of took a little downturn because of predators and things like that, and the farming picture changed in Tennessee. But when I came here and got involved with the 4-H programs, they started the 4-H sheep project, and I had a daughter and she showed, and the next thing I knew, we had them and we were raising them. So I lambed 62 mature ewes this year, and I probably have about 30 yearlings that are being sheared today. And also this year I had about 90 babies. So they're adding up. I started with 3 28 years ago. There's different segments of the sheep industry, and what I'm in is what they call the club lamb business, which is selling sheep to the 4-H FFA kids for show. Also, some genetics is in there. There's other people that are in the sheep business to produce wool, which is a big industry. There is a wool pool that you can take your wool to and sell each year. They have 2 locations, one in East Tennessee and one in Middle Tennessee. And there's a certain day a year that you take your wool in. And there again, it's sort of an event in that all the sheep producers are there, and they help unload the wool and pack the wool. And so it's a community effort. At one time, Tennessee had the oldest wool pool in the country. That's pretty much, you could say, a co-op, in that they felt like that when they took the wool, and they had specifications, keeping it clean. But when you have a large amount, they would bring more money. Also, there seems to be just a lot of interest in the wool products.
This is a reproduction of one.
Even milking sheep. There's a couple of dairies in East Tennessee that milk their sheep. But yeah, it's growing. And one of the reasons is because, there's smaller acreages, and you can put sheep on the smaller acreage. You don't need a real large farm to have sheep.
Can you see where the twist is going up the yard?
We want people to come away from this area, from the museum, and appreciate their history.
Now what I'll do is I'll make...
Whether it's Appalachian history or whether it's another history, that's what we see when they come here. You know, kids love to not only read about it, but to understand it. And it makes it real for them to see it. It's one thing for them to read about it in the textbook, but for them to come and experience it, that makes it real for them.
We hope you've enjoyed these volunteer state stories. I'm Vicki Lawson. See you on the next Tennessee Life.
Tennessee Life is sponsored by
Mid-South Sewing and Fabric has what you need for your creative adventure. If it's sewing, embroidery, or vinyl projects you need for a home business, Etsy, Pinterest, and your family, we have it. Mid-South Sewing sells Brothers Sewing and Embroidery machines and the latest scan and cut crafting machine. Mid-South Sewing and Fabric in the Gallery Shopping Center.
Tennessee Life is also brought to you by The Flower Pot. For over 100 years, offering flowers and same-day delivery with 2 convenient Knoxville locations. KnoxvilleFlowerPot.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.